Okay, so last lesson the focus was on the political corporate social responsibility and consequences. Hello? You are the only representative from Armenia today. Out of three, now the other two, one I know, she is busy with with the eye doctor. And the other one, she's coming, okay. Now she's online. Okay, fine. Oh, hello. Directly from Libya. Directly from Libya. Okay, so remember, you're working on your project work. Remember that you cannot invent at the last minute. You have to be right on your desk, reading and analyzing. Now, I think today I'll give you a few more hints with the two articles from Michael Porter, okay? So last time we said, now the reason why I just go back to this, because we had one point here was dark side. The dark side is because when you have a very strong companies, then you have what is called regulatory capture. This regulatory capture has been known since the end of the year 60s of the past century. And the result of process by which regulation in law or its application is consistently or repeatedly directed away from the public interest and toward the interests of the regulated industry by the intent and action of the industry itself. So by having, then you can have direct and very heavy bribing, for example, paying money to politicians on the part of these companies, or if not bribing, then you have lobbying, which is like saying, I'm going to tell people to vote for you, or I'm going to pay for your election campaign. You know, all of this is what I call a dark side, because there is a relationship between corporations and the political system. To ignore it is something that is, you know, you have to take into account that this is what happens in all the countries in the world. Unfortunately, there is no one that is safe on this aspect. Maybe in some places more, in some other places less, but it's across the board. In my experience, but more than in my experience, because I haven't been lobbying for anyone, but all the studies I have been reading in the literature, it's across the board. Okay, so I was saying no, sorry. Okay. We had two definitions. I use this one. Activities where the corporate social responsibility has an intended or unintended political impact, or where intended or unintended political impacts on CSR exist. It has, that is, impacts related to the functioning of the state as a sphere of activity that is distinctive from business activity. So I said, okay, towards the sunny side, because we had a dark side there. So I said, is there a sunny side? Let's see. And I started, and today we are going to see, I don't know if we can make it with two articles, but since they are two articles authored by Michael Porter and is the director of his foundation, which is Porter and Kramer, there are two. He wrote one, he teaches, Michael Porter teaches at Harvard, and he's one of the most famous management gurus in the world, right? And one of the models you recognize is this one, because we have seen it in this, you know, these are the activities, the basic activities that transform with operations, you know, inbound logistics operations, outbound logistics, marketing and sales, after sales. And these are the support activities, of course, procurement, that is where we get either the basic materials that I use in my production, or some basic services if I am a bank where they get the money from my customers. Then the firm infrastructure, financing, planning, investor relations, human resource management, recruiting, training, compensation systems. Technology development, we had 4 lessons on technology development, right? And I told you the difference between technology in general and what is specific for environment. And we have seen best available technologies, and the place in the European Union where you can find all the reports on the best available technologies. I told you that only in case you are very advanced in your project work, can you, I advise you not to get into the best available technologies, because otherwise you get confused. I don't think you have enough knowledge in chemistry or other technological knowledge. So just refer to that if you're desperate and you sort of have the doubt that something fishy is going on there. So I say, oh, I don't know what to decide. And then you say, okay, I'll try and go and see what I can make out of it. So this was taken from a book that it was from 1980, I think it was first published. But actually this model here, now, Porter's models, what is a model? A model is a general, brief, but sensitive kind of representation of the relevant reality that you are studying, that you, in the sense of the author of that study. So a model is a synthetic representation of the relevant reality that the author is studying. Now, this one here instead is another model, which was published in 1990 in a book that's called, the other book was called Competitive Advantage. This book here, where you find this model, is called The Competitive Advantage of Nations. That is, the first book in 1980, it was looking at the elements of competitive advantage with respect to, of course, of a company with respect to its competitors. With the perspective was the individual, the individual company. But then here it says there is a competitive advantage of nations. That is, certain nations seem to be better off in the international economic, well, we can call it war, but in the end, sometimes it goes into real war. But anyway, so he said, for example, he was saying that the competitive advantage of, he makes a list of all the countries in this book, and he says in each country what is, according to him in his studies, what is the competitive advantage of that nation. For Italy, he said that the districts, Italian districts, that is the division of labor among companies, small companies, is what made the difference, because certain areas are very, very competitive, and because of the way these districts are structured. But let's see the basic components of this model. On here outside, you can find government, which we have seen the dark side of the operation of governments and parliaments. And here you have also chance. What's chance? Something that you cannot forecast is something like what happened with the pandemics. Now, I know that some said, no, it was not by chance that happened, because if we put a lot of animals without taking care of their health, then pandemics are going to develop in future even more. So someone said that it's not by chance that the pandemics of 2019 developed. It's because we are treating animals in a way that allows certain diseases to jump from the animals onto the human beings. And it's how they are treated, in the sense they are put together, pushed together without, and with a lot of antibiotics, but those antibiotics cannot avoid all kinds of germs. So chance, the government should take care of chance in the sense that individuals, be that people, persons, or companies, cannot face chance or perilous events on their own. They have to be supported by the state, by the government. Okay, so that's why there is this arrow that connects government with chance, and the government, of course, is supposed to influence. It influences the factor conditions. Now, what is this? Strategy, structure, and rivalry. Now, let's say that this is what each company is defined. You can define a company according to the strategy it adopts to reach its objectives, its goals. Remember mission and vision, okay? Now you have the mission, and then you build strategic plans in which you describe specific objectives, specific goals, and the strategy is, we define it as the way through which you pursue those goals, right? Now, so it says that here there are the strategies and the structure, physical and social structures of the companies that are in that country. And rivalry is that companies in most economic systems compete with one another, and some of them perish, and some of them flourish. But this flourishing is in this rivalry among them. So it says here the competitive advantage of a nation is given by the structures and strategies and rivalry that exist among companies. And of course, this is due to what? The goals and strategies of universities, that is, higher education, are part and a very strong component of what? Of the possibilities of strategies and of rivalries if they are on an international market. If you are in a country where the higher education system is stronger, then the companies can hire newly graduated students, and they have well-prepared people that can support them in the pursuit of their goals in the strategy and against their rivals, against the competitors, okay? Then you have local rules and incentives. Incentives are prepared by government, you see, with policy towards education, basic research, are defining economic development objectives. Now, local rules in that nation, for example, Italy, what are the most important local rules that is across the board in Italy? I can tell you one of the biggest problems of the Italian economic system is the taxpayers. That is, not everybody pays the tax. We can say that there are something like 100 billion euros of non-tax paid, which is a big damage. And the government, especially the present one, I'm sorry I'm to criticize, but that's the way I think, presently is actually going in favor of the ones that are not paying taxes. So I think we'll have this problem for quite a while. If you don't pay taxes, then there is not much money for incentives. And therefore, when the Italian companies try to compete on an international level, they are doing it on their own strength. The state is not supporting it, or at least maybe some companies that have been, remember the dark side, that have been financing the electoral campaigns, then those companies are fueled with money, okay? So this is one of the problems that I can see, but I'm not the only one saying that. I mean, I think it's the vast majority says that. Now, factors, conditions. I mean, for example, one of the weak points that we have as a nation, as a state, we are endowed with a sufficient number of human resources, but the birth rate is not high. So in a short while, maybe in 20, 30 years, there won't be enough people to work for the requests on the part of companies. And of course, there won't be enough people paying for pensions of the people that will retire. So the birth rate, that's why several people, here is a huge debate now in this country, in Italy, is that some people say, okay, we have to get all the people that want to come to our countries, because since our birth rate is so low, we can have all the people that want to come, migrants, whatever, we can have them. So we don't have people that are Italian, we have people from other places. So the same, it's not important that you have an Italian one or whatever. You know, the important thing is that the person works and it can contribute to the development of an area. Okay. Then physical and basic resources. Now, what are the basic resources here of any nation? Like, I can underline to make you understand what the meaning is. A basic resource for concerns Italy is no iron, no coal, no nothing of that sort. The only positive resource, it is the hydropower. We produce electricity, it's a renewable resource. Hydropower is one of the largest hydropowers in all Europe, of the European Union, because then Sweden, Norway, etc., they have a lot of hydropower as well. Canada has a lot of hydropower. But I mean, the natural resources that Italy has are basically hydropower. That's it. Knowledge resources. Okay, now knowledge resources are connected to university goals and strategies. Knowledge resources, we have some good universities, and I think you are sitting in one of them. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that, but it's on the books. You know, if you one really that's famous on worldwide is the Department of Agriculture that we have this university. It has publications all over the world, and they're making research, very advanced research. So, and of course, there are several of us that work together with the people in the agriculture department, of course, with different specialization. You know, if you tell me what kind of OMGs the modified, then I won't. But if you tell me how to organize some production concerning agriculture, then I can tell something. So knowledge resources, which are not only in research centers, but how many people in companies have a higher degree education. That's knowledge resources, which are not only within the research institutes, but which are being hired by companies, and so that they can compete through the people that are working for them. For example, in France, doctorate laureates would, if a company would hire a PhD, then they would have a tax relief. They would say, okay, and that would be good for because you know a PhD is very expensive, and then he has a high expectation. So they said we have to incentivize that. We have to say to the companies that if you're getting a PhD, you know, you're going to have a tax relief. So you're going to use a PhD with all these expertise. Of course, you have to, if you hire him, you have to use it properly. But you cannot just hire a PhD and then put him at the door asking, where are you going? Oh, I'm going to the Paoli, and say, okay, let me call it first. Hello here. And so you have to find an appropriate job for these people. But then, but this knowledge resources, and then I told you that in the districts that you have small enterprises, 10 people each, and they wouldn't have, each one of them doesn't have enough financial power to invest in research centers. But when they pull together, then they have, especially for what concerns materials, they have research, specific research. You see, for example, related and supporting industry. This is non-higher education research institutions. It's the one I just mentioned. It's small factories pulling together and, for example, financing the research of new materials in an area. I give you an example here. This is the Italian footwear cluster, the district, okay? Now, ski boots, you have molds and models, and of course, the parts of the footwear that, and of course, après-ski boots, it means once you finish skiing, you're enjoying yourself even more and going somewhere, and there is a whole kinds of footwear which is called after skiing, okay? So these are all the connections that are there. And so he said that Italy is, because of this entrepreneurs of small companies, are good at making contracts among them. And they have a strength that is not relative to their financial power, but to their entrepreneurship. And the fact that they have a specific long-lasting culture that has been developed along that is from the 1950s onward, okay? And so this is an example. But then, so these are the models that are the basis of the two articles that we are going to look at. But then why did I choose those two articles? Because of course, and you see it from the titles of the two. See, Porter and Kramer. Kramer is the director of the foundation that was made by Porter. That is the professor of management at Harvard University. Strategy and Society, the link between corporate social responsibility and competitive advantage. Harvard Business Review. This was done in 2006. If you recall, in 2008, there was the big study by Raghi, which was the special researcher and counselor of the Secretary General to the United Nations for the Human Rights. So in 2006, he published this book in which he says, right now, and it was actually, this is very important article because it was cited 12,000 times in scientific papers. So when you have this number of citation, it means that it was very useful and it left a mark within that. I didn't leave that. Okay, so this is the first one we're going to see, and then the other one, Porter and Kramer, 2011, after 5 years, creating shared values. Harvard Business Review, 2011, January, February. It has been cited more than 9,000 papers. It was not as successful, but still, I mean, I would go for it. Now, what it was saying, here we go. Beyond business as usual, as we define it, right? For example, Parker Strategy and Society. Now, let's read, now it's directly, you see, quote, unquote. That's exactly from, I'm going to send these articles to you because I think you can read it and it is very important, besides my interpretation, that you read and you can keep it for, you know, because they are basic articles. Prioritizing socially. So he says, no business can solve all of society problems or bear the cost, sorry for the misprint, of doing so. Instead, each company must select issues that intersect with its particular business. So you don't have to look for all the problems of society. You have to look at one problem that if you go ahead and solve it, you also solve one of your problems. So that's why shared value and the strategy and society. What is your strategy? What business are you in? Is there something that you can do for yourself, but at the same time you can do it for improving the society where you are based? Okay. Other social agendas are best left to those companies in other industries, non-governmental organizations or government institutions that are better positioned to address them. You know, all society problems. The essential test that should guide the corporate social responsibility is not whether a cause is worthy, but whether it presents an opportunity to create shared value. What is shared value? Is value that is good for my company, and it's also good for the society where I'm working with. There is a meaningful benefit for society that is also valuable to the business. So here we have prioritizing social issues, generic social issues. And he says, social issues that are not significantly affected by a company's operations, nor materially affect its long-term competitiveness. So improving, if you are, we've seen before the footwear industry. Now, how does that affect the health, the average health of the Italian people and of the people that are staying in this country? Very little, you know, maybe through the taxes that they pay on their profits, but that's indirect. What he's talking about is value chain social impacts, social issues that are significantly affected by a company's activities in the ordinary course of business. Social dimensions of competitive context, social issues in the external environment that significantly affect the underlying drivers of a company's competitiveness in the locations where it operates. So this means that generic social, good citizenship, responsive CSR. Now, this is where philanthropy, for example, you decide that part of your profit, especially if they are tax reliefs, you are going to give to that local community or to the state for certain foundations, but it's called good citizenship. Now, value chain social impact, mitigate harm from value chain activities. Now, remember, if you look at GRI, Global Reporting Initiative, you have a whole part on value chain impacts, right? How you choose your suppliers, where are they, in what country are they positioned, what are the problems in that country, what can you do to improve the state of those suppliers in each specific country, not abstractly in the world, in that specific place, because one of the criteria says that you have to focus on your problem and on the specific problem of that context. No abstract talk, you see? And then social dimensions of competitive context. Strategic philanthropy that leverages capabilities to improve salient areas, important areas of competitive context. Transform value chain activities to benefit society while reinforcing strategy. Of course, most multinational companies have a long supply chain. And so this value chain social impact is one of the most important ones. And it's one of the most neglected ones. You see, you cannot ask, for example, the reason why you have to have a strong government in the sense that is not in the dark side is that I told you that when I did this research in Malaysia, there was this large company, automotive company from a Far East country that was financed by the Malaysian state, and they had built a plant, and they had 5,000 employees, Malaysian employees. And you know that, probably you don't, but anyway, there are 3 ethnical groups in Malaysia. One group is from it's autochthonous Malaysian. Then you have Indians, and then you have from India. Then you have a third ethnicity. Yeah, but anyway, 5,000 people were taken, and they were mostly farmers. So they left their farms and they went to work in this factory. After 5 years, the company decided that they had too many costs transporting their cars from Malaysia onto the final markets. So they decided they would quit the production in Malaysia. So when I met the Minister of the Development, they said they were very mad at this company, but so they didn't want the mistake was theirs, that they financed and they incentivated this large company. Said the model should be an Italian one. Small companies that if one fails, it's not such a damage, because the 5,000 people that were laid off, they couldn't go back to their farms, because in the meantime, those farms have died away, the farms. If you don't till the land continuously, then that is the damage. That's okay. We go on. So he said, companies as proactive social actors, companies operate within a context because of their interaction with it. They initiate a process that has consequences both for them and the context. Now, let's see. This is taken directly. I didn't quote unquote, because when you see this below, it means that maybe it's paraphrased. It's not literally exact, but it is. So this is looking inside out. That is from the company, the context. Let's see what he says. You see that he uses his model here. This is the margin profit making. This is, of course, all the areas. The reason why I will send you together with my slide at the end of this part, that is organizational culture. I will send you these two articles, this one and the next one. Why? Because here it says that, for example, here, technology development, you have what are the relevant issues concerning social responsibility and environmental responsibility. The relationship with universities, of course, product safety, conservation of raw materials, ethical research practices, for example, animal testing. Now, who's doing the research, the project work on that? No, you're not doing the one on the goose feather. No, who was that? Moncler, you're doing Moncler, yeah. So, animal testing, genetically modified organisms. So, what is the policy in there? What is the policy of the company concerning animal testing and GMOs? And what are the state rules in which the company is working, not the parent company, but the branch company in that specific country? So you have to know what are the regulations there, and what you can do if you are more sensitive to these issues than the regulations in that country, and you want to do something about it. Why would you worry about such a thing? Because maybe your customers in your parent company are very sensitive to GMOs issues or to animal testing, and so you want that the rules applied in that country that supports you with some raw materials, it's online with the requests of your customers in another country, because you are serving an international context. Okay, now this is what concerns technology development. As you can see, and we have discussed, technology is not only the device, it's also the knowledge behind the device. So it is a technical expertise, knowledge, also in management, also in, for example, chemicals and services within So let's see some examples here. He said here, you see in firm infrastructure, financial reporting practices, government practice, transparencies. Now, transparency, your project work concerns transparency. It has some principles that the Global Reporting Initiative states, transparency is one of those. Use of lobbying. Do they use lobbying? Yes, well, you can use some kind of lobbying, which means you are present in a newspaper saying we are doing research on this, and you want to promote your expertise. That's not negative lobbying. Lobbying is negative when it tries to bribe governmental authorities, okay? But lobbying, if it is just advertising what you are doing, not fake news, but exactly you're doing research, you're doing something appropriate, or you're doing some activities on animal testing that are very new. You want to make advertising on that. That is, you want to say, I want to people to know that we are doing this. That's okay, in my opinion. That's all right, not only in my opinion, but that's acceptable. I see. It is in my. And for example, if I advise you to, when you're doing your project work, to see if in newspapers, and I told you that maybe the Guardian or the New York Times, or anyway, you just brush on the internet the name of the company and see if some of newspapers comes out and see what articles are there. Maybe you can use pro the fact that maybe they are advertising some initiatives, cultural initiatives or research initiatives, and that's a pro in favor of that company. Or otherwise, if they said, oh, they are saying that they are saving energy, but they're still using coal, and they don't want to say so because their non-financial statement doesn't say that. But we know that in fact they were condemned by a tribunal because they are not doing what they state. So sometimes you get this news from of course, the newspaper. If the company is too powerful, then sometimes it just bribes the newspaper, say you don't publish that, because otherwise I won't buy advertising from your newspaper. You know, what blackmailing is this one? You say newspapers, and that most of them have financial difficulties. That's why they are going online. From the end of 1990s, when internet became powerful, then they're mostly online. And what is remained on the newspaper, it's the amount of advertising that goes there. So as most of the advertising is through companies, then a company say, if you're going to publish that article that's against me, for example, that I'm not doing the saving on the that I am saying in my non-financial report, then I'm not going to buy advertising from you any longer. And that's it is quite an aggressive kind of. Now, let's see some example. Now you see, for each one of these, you see a list of basic issues that are important for the company. And if you can do something, now worker safety and labor relations. For example, in Italy, one of the biggest issues is worker safety. In fact, every year we have 1,000 workers that die on the work site. So 1,000 plus many immigrants. For example, I told you already, if you go down south, 80 kilometers south of Rome, you can find 35,000, more or less, Sikhs, which are working on a slave situation. And 2 years ago, 23 of them committed suicide because they had such bad conditions. Now, just imagine that they stay all day on the ground to get the rings, small rings like that, and for 150 of them, and if you collect 150 of them, means that you have to discard another 150, they get maximum 3 euros, okay? So that is the situation. I don't want to speak of what happens in the rest of the world. I think we should look at what we do in our house before going somewhere else.
I heard something this morning near Livorno.
Yeah.
And something like that happened. And the immigrants that are working and are some paid less than €1 per hour.
Yeah.
For example.
And they had, this was on the state TV the other day, the Balestra, this and Fendi, these are two high couture, haute couture, high fashion, and they found in the headquarters of Fendi a door that was closed. They opened it, the police opened it, and they found I don't remember how many people that are closed in there. They sleep and stay in there and work all day, and they are immigrants, and that's high fashion. It means that some of these clothes cost something like 3, 4, 5,000 euros, and they are sold by these people. Okay, so situations are not as easy, even in let's see. Now we see here outbound logistics, order processing, warehousing, report preparation, packaging, use and disposal, McDonald's clamshell. Now, for example, it gives this as an example of doing something good for society and at the same time for the company. For example, one of the problems of McDonald's was that the packaging, you'd go to get a hamburger and take it home, then you use a lot of paper it was solid waste at one problem. So they devised this McDonald's clamshell, which had everything you could put in this. So it was good because they saved costs of materials for their packaging. At the same time, they reduced the amount of waste that would go into the system. Okay, this is looking inside out. That is from what you're doing, from your activities, where you can improve both your activities and the world outside, the society outside. Okay, we can stop here before we go to the next. I'll just show it to you because so you can come back early. This is very interesting. There are some more examples, Nestle, Microsoft Working Connection, etc., etc. So you can have this 10 minutes break now. I stop recording. Okay, we have seen this. Now, context management for companies looking, before we were looking inside out, and now we look outside in, social dimensions of the company's competitive context. Now, here we are. You see, so this is the area. Now they don't have government here. Remember, in the model here was government and here chance, and they were connected. But all these areas are interconnected. I'll show you, for example, Microsoft Working Connections. So here it says access to research institutions and universities. Now, Microsoft has been having, I don't know now, but in 2011, I know for sure that they didn't have software developers as many as they needed. So what they did, they invested $50 million in local colleges that were not actually, these local colleges were not training their students appropriately to become good software developers. So and also their teachers were not updated on the most advanced techniques. So what they did, they decided to invest this $50 million so they would invest them in these colleges, and then when these people graduated, they would hire them. So what they did, that's what it means, shared value. Say, I need some software developers, I cannot find them because these colleges are not training them in an appropriate way. So I invest there, give them the money, they invest, and I get the people I need from. So that's what's the meaning of the meaning of shared value. That is, we are investing somewhere. We take an advantage from that because we get the people we need, but at the same time, we are developing that specific colleges, and not necessarily all the people who graduate from there come to work for us. They also go work for other firms. So the whole society, the whole context gains from this investment. That's why that's a way to conceive social responsibility in a strategic way. I do something good for myself, but which is also good for the context where I work. Okay, now let's see. Now, Grupo Nueva, I leave the link here. You, if you're interested, you can go when I send you the slides. This is sustainable natural resources. The Grupo Nueva, I think, is is from Mexico, but then it works in Latin America, and they are in forestry and wood works. So, in order to work for forestry, they plant new trees every so often because they need to cut them, and so they do it. I know for sure that, for example, Finland has had the shortage of paper. You know, you produce paper, white paper from trees, and then and I don't know what's the name in English of pioppo, but anyway, poplar. Okay. I know that in Finland, they grow this kind of tree expressly to make paper out of it. And they know that they have to become good for paper. They have to grow for 10 years. So they calculate how many trees they have to plant every year, so that after 10 years they can chop them down. And so that it means it keeps an equilibrium. So Grupo Nueva is in the same business, not for paper, but from at large wood industry. And they say they decide sustainable natural resources, water conservation. Of course, they need, when you're planting a tree, you need water to water it, especially in the first years. So they devised a way to, especially in areas where the availability of water is not so good. So they invested in there, and they say it's something that is good for them because they grow trees that they can cut, and then it's good for them, but also for the repletion of water in the surroundings. You see, Grupo Nueva. Do you have the link there? And we can. I don't want to spend the time on this specific issue here in class, but I leave you the link and you can connect, and if you're interested, then you can. So, for example, here, then you have Cisco's locally grown products, Nestle's big collection diaries. Now, availability of local suppliers. Now, Cisco is not Cisco with CI, because that is some other business. Cisco, they have good local food. So what they do, they want, it's good non-industrial local food. So they sort of take care of small farmers, and they agree with them that they're going to take the crops, and for the small farmer, it's a guarantee with good prices that has good income for the farmers, and they do not do what the big industry does, that is just buys at the lowest price possible. And at the same time, it's good for them, for Cisco's, because they are specialized in appropriate natural food, and they can sell it at a premium price to their customers. But they can do that if they keep those small farmers going, you know. And this is another example of shared value, because what is good for the company has good consequences also for the local communities. Okay, Nestle's big collection diaries. Now, Nestle in India was trying to get, you know, to develop for Nestle, milk is one of the basic raw materials, right? But the problem was that the poor farmers in some areas did not have enough water or enough care, or there were diseases. So what they did, they decided they would finance trucks that would go collect the milk in all the farms, local farms, And on these trucks, there were some vets that would go visit the cattle and say, oh, they are okay, or you need some vitamins, or they have some diseases, so we can treat them. So they developed this connection with these local cattle raisers. They gather the milk, which they used, of course, but at the same time, they developed the farmers in these places. So that's another example. He says in his article, that's why I'm sending you the articles. These are all examples that are explained there. Not vastly, but succinctly, you get the. So I think these are the basic. You can see, because these contexts for firm strategy and rivalry, all of these are connected, and of course are connected to the government regulations that support, both the, you see another example here, the unusual local needs that can be served nationally and globally. Urbis housing facility relievers. Now, both of the pyramid strategy. What these two, Unilever and Urbi, decided that they would give a loan to people with low salaries. They would just decide they would repay the loan with a small percentage of their salary. So they could acquire a house without running into trouble. And for them, it was good because they would have, they could make small amount of money with low risk, but at the same time, they would do good to the society, would have some, at the same time, they would increase the number of clients, even though they were small more customers, which wouldn't give you much money for a large house. But at the same time, it's like when we made the example of a big with respect to Mont Blanc, if you sell 1 million big, you make more money than selling 1,000 Mont Blancs. So this is the same principle. Maybe a bank or financial institution can raise much money by applying small tariffs, small rates to many people instead of having higher rates to a smaller amount. So this means to have a strategic approach to corporate social responsibility. So you're not directly going to say, because the state will have to, for example, go to the cattle raiser in India saying, well, I'm going to reinforce the elementary school or the junior high schools so that you have better education and you can understand certain things. That's up to the state or the regulation or to some other institution. What Nestlé can do is that as I'm using the milk, I can directly improve the condition in which this milk is, because they got this refrigerated come on in, we're open doors policy. But at the same time, they can, so these refrigerated trucks, it's an investment that Nestlé makes, but at the same time, they're not doing that for philanthropy. They're doing it because it's their own interest to have good milk, So this is the other one. It says the two basic ideas here is that it uses two models. This first model is looking inside out. What are your activities and where you can find a connection to the outside world to improve your strategy and the connection with the rest of the world. And do some. There is another example here. Marriott's job training. Marriott is a chain of hotels, right? Now I don't know where in the world, but they decided that they say, oh, we want people trained in the way we like. So in these areas, we find that they are not prepared to have the service that we need. Marriott is a high level kind of hotels, not mass hotels, but for a certain lead. So what they proposed is said, okay, in the local communities, we are going to have this program for long unemployed youth, youngsters that were unemployed for quite a while. And so they would train them for free. And so they started this program. And in the local communities, the local authorities checked, and then they found out that after 3 years, they finished the training course. They were still, 65% were still in working for Marriott, which is a higher percentage of people that were still working at the same place where, for example, the state was paying them training and when they were hired by other companies. So there was, in his opinion, the opinion of Porter and Kramer, the idea is that it's another example of how you can do good for yourself and do good for the community. If you watch not just to your own immediate, short-term profit, but returns with a little bit, that's what an entrepreneur should do, right? Entrepreneurial kind of activities, not looking just at the financial return short-term. They are used to have to see the profit on a 3 months period of time. Okay, context management. Is it clear? Do you have questions on these two models and the examples we made? Online, here the numerous public that's
Here.
Do you have a question? Go ahead.
Hello, Professor.
Yes, go ahead. You raised your hand. So.
Hello, Professor. Good
Omar
evening.
Farouk, what do you have to say? Go ahead.
How are you, Professor?
I'm fine, thank you. So we are
Professor,
waiting for your comment.
Okay, thank you, Professor, for big opportunities. Professor, my question is because I'm doing internship outside of Italy, so I didn't choose my project topic. So
yeah, but I thought you wanted to. No, we'll see at the end of this lesson. Now it is supposed to people that want to speak about what our lesson is now. If you have problems with your project work at the end of the lesson, we stay.
Okay, Professor.
You have some comments for what I've been talking about.
Okay, Professor.
Otherwise, we can talk about our summer holidays as well, but I don't think it's relevant to your colleagues. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Melkonian, does she have any questions?
Yeah, it's all I understood everything. I'm here. It's all clear. Thanks.
What about Pizarri? The almost paintress.
Then I don't have a question. Thank you.
Okay, fine. Okay, then we can here on the floor, on the class, no one. Okay, so we can go ahead, right? Now, creating shared value. Now, Porter, now this is the second article. Creating shared value. You see, there was the issue in the preceding article, saying, you don't go only on philanthropy. Try to build shared value. So after 5 years, he says, okay, I'm going to underscore this concept. Why? Because he says there is a political implication in this. And here I try to make it a big. The capitalist system is under siege, Porter and Kramer say in this article. They state that. And learning how to create shared values is our best chance to legitimize business again. Now, the reason why he says that the capitalist system is under siege, he says because it is not legitimized. It has been doing so much wrong that everybody's saying, not everybody, but many people are criticizing the capitalist system because of, well, on economic grounds, social grounds, religious grounds, whatever. So he says, if we stress this concept, creating shared values can resolve many issues that have been. That's why he says that it's the capitalist system is under siege. But I understand it as the United States capitalist system is questioned. But anyway, so what it says that the concept of shared value can be defined as policies and operating practices. See, the activities that a company is making to reach its goals that enhance competitiveness of a company while simultaneously advancing the economic and social conditions in the communities in which it operates. Shared values creation focuses on identifying and expanding the connections between societal and economic progress. The concept rests on the premise that both economic and social progress must be addressed using value principles. Value is defined as benefits relative to cost, not just benefits alone. Okay, this is taken from the article to see quote unquote. Drivers towards creating shared values. A host of factors such as the growing social awareness of employees and citizens and in the increased scarcity of natural resources will drive unprecedented opportunities to create shared values. Now, in the preceding articles, some of these, there was made the example from the company that was working in Latin America and from Mexico. Now, let's go on. Since there's some social awareness, because it says if the capitalist system is under siege, but at the same time, that means that there is a growing social awareness of employees and of citizens on the social issue. So it's not, if that's the way you have to go, otherwise people will be increasingly dissatisfied and the whole system will collapse, which is not, in his opinion, the appropriate thing to do. Anyway, clearly share key questions for companies. They're considering products and markets. So how can we redesign our products and the markets where we are operating so that we can create shared value, redefining productivity in the value chain. Now, what is productivity in all the suppliers?
Stavo un attimo a provare a richiamare lei perché lei mi ha detto che c'è solamente l'allineamento CPC.
Quindi sarebbe sul 6.
Okay. Well, you are still online, I can see. Okay, can you hear me or not? Now, can you hear me? Can you see?
Yes, here, Professor, is good
Okay.
quality voice.
Okay, here we define it. See, a shared value lens can be applied to every major company decision. Let's see that. Could our product design incorporate greater social benefits? Are we serving all the communities that would benefit from our products? Do our processes and logistical approaches maximize efficiencies in energy and water use? Could our new plant be constructed in a way that achieves greater community impact? How are gaps in our cluster holding back the efficiency and speed of innovation? Our cluster is a district. When a company is in a certain community, then it comes like it's creating new businesses. And therefore, these businesses, there are several types, small ones, they create connections with one another and they become small districts, which we have seen there in Italy have been very successful. So it says it's a good start. How are gaps in our cluster holding back? Okay. How could we enhance our community as a business location? If sites are comparable economically, at which one will the local community benefit the most? If a company can improve societal conditions, it will often improve business conditions and thereby trigger positive feedback loops. This is another version of the ones of you which studied political economy. I can understand that this sentence here is a bit similar to what is called the trickling economy. In the sense that if the largest enterprises develop, then some benefits trickle down to smaller companies, to employees, and to society at last in the end. But that's of course. So we see some criticism to these two articles. Now, the first we draw the conclusion that they say, okay, classical corporate social responsibility, the value is doing good, that is philanthropy, for example, citizenship, philanthropy, sustainability. Here on the other side, they create corporate shared value, economic and societal benefits relative to cost, in the sense relative to cost, in the sense that it's not absolute. It's you are addressing those issues that are relevant for the community if they are at a reasonable cost for you that you can recover through revenues and discretionary or in response to external pressure, integral to competing. It means here you understand, for example, we made the instance of Nike and the soccer balls of 20 years ago. The miners working in the Nike was under a lot of criticism because they said that they were using kids to manufacture their soccer balls, right? So that what means from external pressure. So they were finally obliged to take care of human rights and not to have children work for them. So, but discretionary in response to external pressure, no, it's integral to competing. Now, if you as a company want to compete in an appropriate way because you think that your customers and your shareholders, your employee, for example, why is what your employee think of you integral to competing? Because if your employee leaves you to go to a competitor, then it's a damage to you. So if you can be attractive to your employees also on societal issues, that's very important. That's why it's important for it's integral to competing. Separate from profit maximization, integral to profit maximization. Well, of course, if the purpose of the company is to maximize profit, then it's clear that the separate from profit maximization, philanthropy, and sustainability, citizenship agenda is okay. Fair trade purchasing, that's an example, transforming procurement to increase quality and yield. Fair trade purchasing it's something good, but not integral to competing, because you can buy that, but you do not change what's happening in that. You are not reinforcing those. Yes, it's very, of course, if you're buying in fair trade through the profits they are making in those areas, then that will improve the areas. But if you are directly, for example, buying trucks to collect milk, that is a direct intervention. It's not just buying at a fair value, that is buying with a proper amount of money the milk from the farmers. Is doing something more, is doing something more structured. It's not just buying. With fair trade, what you're doing, you're purchasing at an appropriate price, but you are not intervening in the way that the price is made, the revenues, the profits, the margins, etc. So it says that if you are doing this, if you're going through this approach, then you're transforming the supply chain. So whether they are working then for you or for someone else, then, or for other, of course, you don't want them to work for your competitors, but they can work for some other companies, not your competitor, and then the economic system will take advantage of that. But anyway, now we have seen this, the corporate social responsibility traditionally interpreted, and in this corporate shared value proposal by Porter and Kramer. Okay. Criticism to Parker and creating shared value. Let's see some of this criticism. Now, these are I have all these articles. As I told you several times, I prefer to use published articles, which maybe in this case I've not written them, but they have gone through a peer-reviewed double-blind, and which, since they are very famous articles, I use criticism by people that have published their criticism. Okay, an overly narrow economic perspective. Companies are capable of calculating benefits only from an economic perspective. It says that when you're saying that, okay, that's coherent with you're having a narrow economic perspective. For example, reinforcing the connections between people and cultures, local culture is not your problem. You just take care of, you are buying at a certain price and you're collecting the milk with your trucks. And that doesn't take care of something that we'll see. I think I showed it already, but we'll discuss this later on. Corporate socialism is more than Porter and Kramer think. Porter and Kramer understand social needs not as ethically important ends, but rather as economically smart means for successful companies. So you are dismissing religious aspects, called tradition, etc., etc. This is an important aspect which, if you just take into account the economic aspect, you are neglecting this very important. And there are lots of people for which these issues are critical, are their basic kind of approach to life, to social liveliness. Given their line of argumentation, Porter and Kramer think that, this I added, as long as business practice do not harm the business performance in the long run, and the company complies with law and ethical standards, and as long as the business gains sufficient legitimacy in the eyes of its stakeholders, then all business practices are fine. Strategic stakeholder approach versus against claim holder approach. What this means, what these authors say is that, okay, you're taking into ethical standards, you're doing everything, but you're considering the strategic stakeholders, that is the ones that can contribute to your strategy in improving your business. But then what about the other stakeholders, the ones that are involved, which they call claim holders? What stakeholder is someone that's already gained attention on the part of the company, that, for example, in your non-financial statements are interviewed or take part into saying, well, these are our priorities and we should like that the company acknowledges that. But then these are the stakeholders. Then the claim holders are groups of people that are not yet involved in this planning business, but they have claims. So why don't we take into account? And sometimes claim holders are the ones that have antennas onto future problems, which it doesn't mean that otherwise we are always running after things after they become real serious. So claim holders can be very interesting in the sense that they are indicators, they are weak signals towards huge problems for the future. So it says, look, strategic stakeholder approach is not enough. You have a claim holder approach should be included.
I don't understand part.
Claim holders, what are they? Yeah. They claim. So if you're a stakeholder, you're claiming that you are important for that company, for the future of the customers. You claim that, but it's not acknowledged. You are not called, you are not interviewed, you are not taken care of. So they say, we have to take care of the claim holders, so the ones that claim to be part of the interviews or being part of the decision process of the problem solving or the problem setting. In this case, it would be more important as part of the problem setting areas. Okay? Continues to work creating shared value. Their approach makes a company only more acceptable. To increase their legitimacy, they should devise policies, strategies, and operations that should make them become also social actors and not only economic actors. But to this end, they should answer the following question: what does our company stand for? What is our contribution to society? Beyond the fact that they just either buy sustainability or they do shared value, right? It's a larger perspective. What are our fundamental values and what business strategies emerge out of them? You know, well, there was, for example, one of the companies I made action research for, they were producing financial software for the largest banks in Italy. Okay, now they wanted to build a competence centers, and so I helped them build with certain connection. They were trying to devise ways how to build financial systems for Muslim societies, because as you know, interest rates by origin are not supposed, but then in practice they are. Banks do work in that way. So they were trying to find, they had some experts from Muslim, but I think it took them 2 or 3 years. Then I left. I ended my job before they would solve the issue. They couldn't solve it. They took them a long time because they were trying to find ways. But then I think they just went. These banks went along just like normal banks, applying interest rates. Just as so sorry that I'm laughing, but it was, they were desperate. They say, oh, because on one side they wanted to make with this rich oil making countries, they wanted to sell their software also to those, but then they couldn't figure out how they would go along with the religious aspects, and they were in great pains. They spent a lot of money trying to develop this, but they, in 2 years, I stayed there for, I worked with them for about a year, and then in all the time, they couldn't come out with some reasonable solutions. You know, when you're trying to put, fundamental values into your business, then you run into this kind of problems, which it's not, it is something, no, we don't want to take care of that, and you are explicit. Or if you want to take care of that, then you have to study hard and find out and find ways through which you can find an agreement or a solution. So what it says that the maximizing profit is it runs against ethical issues. There is no shortcut onto that. That's this author here. Bush Horner, 2014. This is an article. So they are not old articles. They're, 10 years ago in research. It's not a long time. And then when you publish in 2014, you have data from 2 years before. Usually, more or less, it depends. Now, this is a principle. This is some basic research. So you can do that in about a year. So maybe this is something collecting data from 2013. So it's even more recent. Legitimate points of attention: market transaction and bargaining versus societal discourse and deliberative processes. Now, market transactions and deliberative process. Who's deciding that price, that price is correct? What is the deliberation? Who decides that? The market is impersonal. which is not impersonal, because then you have strong actors in it that direct, quantities. They buy huge quantities of raw materials, they keep them, and then they go in the futures market and they sell them, and they agree, okay, at what price are you going to buy that on that date? And say, oh no, that price is too high for me. So they take you by the throat. They say, so what it says here, market transaction bargaining versus societal discourses and deliberative process, competition versus cooperation. You hope and innovation, that's where you were pointing at, right? Open innovation was when you were it's one of them. Competition versus cooperation. Now you have both, that this they made up a word connecting competition and competition. There is the new word in which there are companies that are competitors and at the same time they cooperate. And I think we made an example when I showed you the ecosystem on the automotive, which they all cooperated with the artificial intelligence at the company. They cooperate together, even though, of course, Volvo competes with BMW in selling their cars. So on one side, they compete, on the other side, they cooperate. So competition. Firms do not merely speak and listen in economic terms, but they also use, for example, technical, legal, social, and moral languages that are reflected in particular practices. So you are making it, what they say, you are just worrying about economic aspects, and you just you don't have any attention to the other important. So this is some of the criticisms, but I think they are the most important criticisms to those two articles. And anyway, when I send you the slide, you have, now tomorrow we end this part, so the day after tomorrow we'll send you all the slides and the articles, the relevant articles. Not these ones here, because otherwise I burden you with a lot of stuff to read, so I just send you the two articles by Porter and Kramer, and these criticisms that I send you the slide of, because I think this is the nutshell. Okay, now, so if you don't have any questions, we stop here and we keep on going tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll go on with this we don't go on. I don't think it's not important. Towards the sunny side, social innovation and innovation towards sustainability. We'll do this part, social innovation, and okay, tomorrow we'll go on. Going away from business as usual. What about social innovation? We'll try to define that and see that it's not easy. We have many problems there that wait for us. It's like when you go in the woods, what kind of animals am I going to meet? Some innocuous cattle, or some lions, or some wolves, or what is waiting for us? That's why even in what sounds the best possible solution, you have to be always aware that, and be strong and critical, and have all of your efforts as being aware of what can be hiding in cute woods. Okay, right, fine. Okay, we'll see you tomorrow then. Bye. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Professor,
Yes, I now speak about your thing. Now, if the other ones want to go, yeah, I'm going to stay for a few moments with Mohammed.
okay, yes, Professor. Yes,
Okay,
Professor.
the other ones can go. If you
Okay,
others can stay, there is no secret among us. We
yes.
have no secrets, we have no dark side.
Okay.
Only sunny
Can you
side.
can you ask
Today.
my question,
In
Professor?
the previous days, it was dark sides. Okay. Bye. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Okay.
Hello, Professor. Yes.
Okay, tomorrow I'll wait for your. You decide, you choose it tonight. And then tomorrow you tell me. Okay, fine. You see, I'm very normal. I just have certain things which I think are important, And so they're strict, okay, fine. Okay, fine, we'll see you tomorrow then. Okay, so Farooq, tell me your problem. What is your problem?
Okay, Professor, thank you for Professor, I didn't select this project topic for company, and I sent message from WhatsApp. You said all topic and all group and already booked. So what I have to do? I have to choose another company by.
Yes, like you do, like what one of your colleagues chosen, who may chose Tetra Pak, for example. Tetra Pak was not on the list, but I approved it. So you find the
Yes.
reasonable alternative and look at the non-financial statement. And by tomorrow,
Yes.
you tell me what's your choice. The
I
alternative is that
already, Professor, I already choose a company. It's based on energy, and
what,
also
can you
it's
spell your name, please?
yes. This company names are WEAG. It's
RWEAG.
EAG. RWE space AG.
AG.
Yes.
And what do they produce?
They produce energy.
Energy.
Yes.
I have
Yes.
never heard of it. If you, well, is it a large, big
Okay, I will
company?
write. Yes, big company. I'll write this company name here.
Yes.
Professor, here's okay. I'm writing.
Wait. Okay, did you write your name in the chat? Write it in the chat, please.
Yes, Professor, I write this company name.
Okay. RWE. And did you find a non-financial statement?
Yes, non-financial.
The non-financial statement. Did you download their non-financial statement? If they don't have a non-financial statement, then how can you do your project work?
Okay. So I will search. If I find this
Otherwise you
then
have
I
to
will
change
choose.
the company name, the company. You have to find another company.
Okay, Professor. Then I will
by
tell
tomorrow.
you
By
tomorrow.
tomorrow. Okay.
Okay, Professor.
Remember that you have a deadline, which is you have about 15 days to do all the work because.
Okay, Professor.
The alternative
Do you have any? If you have any another company you already have?
No, because it was on the. If you can look at that original list which I gave you on the first lesson, and see. Talk to your colleagues and see if they which ones they've chosen, and then but then first go ahead and find this energy. Okay. Okay. If I think they must have they should have a non-financial statement. Probably, is it a German firm? Is it a German company?
Yes, German company, Professor.
Yeah, well, then they should have a non-financial statement. Okay, so
Okay, Professor.
if you have it, then tell me tomorrow. Okay.
Okay, Professor. Thank you.
Okay. We'll see you tomorrow then.
Okay, Professor. Okay.
Thank you for the lecture, Professor. See you tomorrow.
Okay, bye.